The gentle hum of the observation deck was broken only by the soft beeping of control panels. Commander Zarvek stood with his forearms clasped behind his back, gazing at the stars through the massive viewport. His scaled skin reflected the dim blue lighting as he sighed. Another quiet patrol. The forbidden sector remains as lifeless as ever, he said to no one in particular. The young officer beside him, barely out of training, shifted nervously. Commander, is it true that the forbidden sector was once home to the humans? Zarvek turned, his yellow eyes narrowing. Officer Dren, you should know better than to put stock in children's tales. Humans are myths, stories to frighten younglings into good behavior. But Commander, I've been reading Scholar Trell's research and... Scholar Trell, Zarvek interrupted, has wasted his career chasing shadows. Next you'll tell me you believe in the great space dragons of Andromeda. Officer Dren fell silent, but his eyes remained fixed on the distant stars of the forbidden sector. 12 systems away, in the grand archives of the Confederation capital, Scholar Trell hunched over ancient texts. His thin frame seemed even smaller, surrounded by towering shelves of data crystals and physical books collected from 1,000 worlds. His wrinkled gray skin had paled from decades spent indoors, away from his species' natural sunlight. It's here somewhere, he muttered, carefully turning the fragile page of a book nearly 15 centuries old. The evidence of Earth cannot have vanished entirely. A soft chime announced a visitor. Trell looked up, blinking his large eyes to adjust from close reading. Ambassador Grelkor, what brings the Confederation's chief diplomat to my humble archives? The tall, elegant figure of Grelkor glided into the room. I thought I might find you buried in your myths again, old friend. Not myths. History, Trell corrected. The humans existed. The evidence is circumstantial at best, Grelkor finished. The Council grows weary of funding your research, Trell. 5 decades of study with nothing concrete to show for it. Trell stood, his old joints protesting. The ancient texts speak of a warrior species that fought the legendary Vrex Empire to a standstill. We find Vrex ruins across the galaxy, yet refuse to believe their great enemy existed. Because no trace of this Earth has ever been found, Grelkor said gently. No ruins, no artifacts, no genetic legacy, only stories that grow taller with each telling. Their debate was interrupted by an urgent beeping from Grelkor's communication device. The ambassador's expression shifted from amused tolerance to concern. What is it? Trell asked. Patrol ship Dawnlight has gone silent near the forbidden sector. Across the galaxy, the patrol ship's final transmission reached Confederation Command. Control, this is Dawnlight. We are detecting unusual energy signatures near grid sector 9-73. Requesting permission to investigate. Permission granted, Dawnlight. Proceed with caution. Static filled the channel for several moments before the captain's voice returned, now urgent and filled with disbelief. Control. Massive vessels appearing from nowhere. Design unknown, not in any Confederation database. There, by the stars, they're huge. More static then. They're hailing us. The transmission, it's in an ancient language. The translator is struggling. But, no, that's impossible. The final words from Dawnlight came through clearly, sending a chill through Confederation Command. They claim to be human. I repeat, they claim to be human. We need immediate. The transmission cut off entirely. 3 days later, 5 more patrol ships vanished without a trace. Emergency signals blazed across Confederation space as the High Council convened in an unprecedented midnight session. In his archive, Scholar Trell pulled out his oldest text and opened it to a page showing crude drawings of strange, 2-armed beings standing among stars. Not myths after all, he whispered to himself. They've returned. Officer Lyra Nextel stared at her new orders with disbelief. After 10 years of border patrol duty, the Confederation had assigned her to lead a diplomatic mission into the forbidden sector. Her slender fingers traced the official seal on the document as her third eye blinked rapidly in confusion. "They cannot be serious," she muttered. Her science officer, Kriv, looked up from his station. His transparent skin revealed the rapid movement of fluids that indicated excitement in his species. "Is it about the disappearances, Commander?" Kriv asked. Lyra nodded. "We are to take the Starlight Envoy to investigate these claims." "Claims of humans," Kriv said, his voice dropping to a whisper. The word itself seemed to change the air pressure in the room. "I study the old legends. If these really are humans—" "Do not jump to conclusions," Lyra cut him off. "Myths do not suddenly become real after thousands of years." But as their ship entered the coordinates of the last known sighting, Lyra felt a knot of doubt form in her stomach. 6 patrol ships had vanished now. Something real and dangerous waited for them. The bridge crew worked in tense silence as the Starlight Envoy dropped out of hyperspace. Lyra straightened her uniform and prepared to face whatever pirates or unknown species had been causing trouble. What she wasn't prepared for was the massive shape that appeared on their view screen. "By the 7 moons," the navigator gasped. The vessel before them stretched nearly 3 kilometers in length. Its dark hull was marked with strange symbols and what appeared to be battle scars. Most striking were the weapon ports, hundreds of them, running along its flanks. "We are being scanned," Kriv reported, his skin now pulsing with blue alarm colors. Lyra swallowed hard. "Open a channel. All frequencies." Before she could speak, their communication system activated on its own. A face appeared on the screen. It looked almost like a Xendari, but with rounded ears, fewer facial ridges, and strange, colorful eyes. The being wore a crisp blue and black uniform with small metal pieces on the shoulders. "This is Captain Frank Miller of the United Earth Fleet vessel U.S. Defender. You have entered protected space. Identify yourselves." The bridge fell silent. The universal translator had worked perfectly. The being spoke clear Confederation standard with only a slight accent. Lyra found her voice. "I am Commander Lyra Nextel of the Galactic Confederation ship Starlight Envoy. We are on a diplomatic mission investigating the disappearance of our patrol vessels." The being, the human, nodded. "Your patrol ships crossed into territory under human protection without proper identification. They have been detained but are unharmed." Kriv stepped forward, unable to contain himself. "You claim to be human, but humans err. Myths, legends." Captain Miller's mouth formed what Lyra would later learn was a smile. "I assure you, we are quite real. Your Confederation's histories are incomplete." "Impossible," Lyra said. "If humans existed, where have you been for thousands of years?" "Hidden," Miller replied. "After the war with the Vrex Empire, we retreated to isolated systems beyond your mapped space. We've been watching, recovering, rebuilding." Lyra's third eye widened. "The Vrex are also considered mythological in our history." "They were very real," Miller said, his expression darkening. "And dangerous enough that we needed to disappear until we were strong enough to face threats again." "Threats?" Lyra asked. "Commander Nextel, we've detected Confederation mining operations near a dormant human colony. That's why we've revealed ourselves now." Captain Miller leaned forward. "But that's not the worst of it. Something else is moving in the shadows between our civilizations, something that kept us apart by design." Kriv's skin had turned almost transparent with shock. "What do you mean?" "Request permission to dock with your vessel," Miller said. "What I need to show you shouldn't be transmitted, even on secure channels." Lyra hesitated only a moment before nodding. "Permission granted, Captain Miller. Welcome aboard." The neutral station Harmony Point hung in space like a shining wheel. Inside its central chamber, Confederation Ambassador Grelkor paced nervously. His long robes swept the floor as he moved back and forth, waiting for the human delegation. "They're late," he said to Lyra, who stood calmly by the window. "By our time measurements, perhaps," she replied. "We know almost nothing about them." The door slid open with a soft hiss. Captain Frank Miller entered first, followed by a woman in a similar uniform, but with different shoulder markings. Ambassador Grelcour, Miller said with a slight bow. May I introduce human Ambassador Diana Garcia? Grelcour stopped pacing and studied the human female. She was shorter than Miller, with darker skin and black hair pulled back tightly. Ambassador, Grelcour said, touching his chest in the traditional greeting. Welcome to Confederation space. Diana Garcia did not return the gesture. Let's be clear, Ambassador. This is contested space. Your mining operations are dangerously close to a dormant human colony. Grelcour's eyes widened. We had no knowledge of any colony. Our surveys showed no signs of intelligent life. The colony is in deep hibernation, Garcia explained. Technology your sensors couldn't detect, but your mining explosives could have damaged the stasis systems and killed 10,000 sleeping colonists. The tension in the room grew thick. Lyra stepped forward. If I may ask, why place colonists in hibernation so far from your territories? A new human entered the room. He wore a dark uniform with fewer markings. Insurance, the man said, in case of catastrophic attack on our main worlds. Captain Miller nodded. This is Lieutenant Paul Martinez, Intelligence Division. Martinez placed a small device on the table. It projected a three-dimensional star map. This shows both Confederation space and human territory, he explained. Notice this region between us. He pointed to a dark area. No settlements from either side for hundreds of light years. Doesn't that strike you as odd? Natural expansion should have led to contact centuries ago. Grelcour frowned. What are you suggesting? Someone has been keeping us apart, Martine said, deliberately. Before anyone could respond, a loud explosion rocked the station. Alarms blared as the lights flickered. We're under attack, shouted a Confederation security officer over the comm system. Lyra rushed to a terminal. Sensors show 3 ships firing on the station. The designs, they appear to be human. All eyes turned to the human delegation. Miller's face hardened. Those aren't ours. All human vessels are accounted for. A convenient claim, Grelcour said coldly. Martins pulled out a small device. Captain, I'm reading unusual energy signatures from those ships, similar to what we detected near the Epsilon incident. Diana Garcia's expression changed to alarm. We need to evacuate now. This station isn't safe. Another explosion hit, stronger than the first. Part of the ceiling collapsed, separating the humans from the Confederation delegates. Through the dust and debris, Miller shouted, Commander Nextel, get your people to safety. We'll take another route. Lyra hesitated, then nodded and began leading Grelcour away. As they reached the emergency shuttles, a final transmission came through from Miller. Nextel, we have evidence these attackers aren't what they seem. Meet us at these coordinates in 6 hours. Come alone or with those you absolutely trust. The shuttle launched just as another explosion tore through the station. As they pulled away, Lyra watched the station's main section break apart. 3 ships that looked remarkably like human vessels moved away from the destruction. They revealed themselves only to attack us, Grelcour said bitterly. The old stories warned us about human treachery. Lyra stared at the coordinates Miller had sent. Perhaps, she said, or perhaps there's more happening here than we understand. Grelcour looked at her sharply. Commander, you aren't considering meeting them. Lyra's third eye narrowed in determination. Someone just tried to start a war between our civilizations. Don't you want to know who? Lyra's small shuttle approached the coordinates Captain Miller had provided. A massive asteroid field spread before her, perfect for hiding ships from long-range sensors. She had come alone despite Grelcour's angry protests. This could be a trap, her shuttle's computer warned. I know, Lyra replied, her third eye scanning the field nervously. But I need answers. A signal pinged on her console. A human ship, much smaller than the U.S. Defender, waited behind a large asteroid. It flashed its lights in greeting rather than broadcasting a signal that might be intercepted. Lyra docked her shuttle with the human vessel. The airlock cycled open to reveal Captain Miller and Lieutenant Martinez waiting for her. "You came alone," Miller said, sounding both surprised and relieved. "Thank you for trusting us." "I don't trust you yet," Lyra corrected, "but I want the truth." Martinez led them to a small room where screens displayed images of the attacking ships. "These aren't human vessels," he explained. "They're fakes. Convincing ones, but fakes." He zoomed in on certain details that didn't match human design standards. Then he showed another image that made Lyra's skin pale. "What am I looking at?" she asked. "We captured one of the attackers," Miller said grimly. "This is what we found inside the suit." The creature in the image looked vaguely like a human, but its skin seemed to shift and flow unnaturally. Its eyes were completely black, and where there should have been a mouth, there was only smooth skin. "We believe they're called the Yith," Martinez explained. "In our oldest records, they're mentioned as shapeshifters who can take on the appearance of other species." "Impossible," Lyra whispered. "The Yith are just stories to frighten children." "Just like humans were?" Miller asked quietly. A new person entered the room. She wore a different uniform with red trim. "Commander Olivia Reeves, Special Operations," she introduced herself. "My team has been tracking Yith movements for the past 2 years. We believe they've infiltrated both human and Confederation leadership." Reeves brought up a new display showing various locations across both territories. "Yith activity has spiked in these regions. They've been working to keep our civilizations separated and distrustful of each other." "But why?" Lyra asked. "Divide and conquer," Miller replied. "Together, humans and the Confederation would be too powerful. Apart, we're vulnerable." Martinez handed Lyra a small device. "This can detect Yith. Our technology works better than yours for this purpose." Lyra examined it carefully. "If what you say is true, the Confederation is in grave danger. I need to warn." An urgent alert interrupted her. The ship's communications officer appeared on screen. "Captain, multiple Confederation worlds report they're under attack. The vessels match known Yith signatures." Miller turned to Lyra. "It's starting. They know we've made contact." The screen showed devastating images of Confederation planets under bombardment. Cities burned as strange ships filled the skies. "The Selnar homeworld is hit worst," the officer reported. "Casualties in the millions already." Lyra stared in horror. "My family is on Selnar Prime." Miller placed a hand on her shoulder. "We'll help you. Human fleets are already mobilizing." "Why would you help us?" Lyra asked, her voice breaking. Reeves answered, "Because we've fought the Yith before. They nearly destroyed Earth in the distant past. We won't let them do the same to your worlds." Miller opened a channel to the U.S. Defender. "This is Captain Miller. Full combat alert. Inform Admiral Wilson we need the entire Third Fleet. We're going to war." He turned to Lyra. "Commander, I need you to convince your people to trust us. If humans and the Confederation don't fight together, the Yith will destroy us all." Lyra looked at the images of her burning homeworld, then back at the humans preparing for battle. "I'll do whatever it takes," she said, "but we need to hurry." The Confederation defense fleet above Selnar Prime was failing. Their ships, while advanced, were not designed for the savage attack the Yith had launched. Buildings burned on the surface below as Yith bombers made endless runs against the cities. Commander Zarvek watched from the bridge of his damaged vessel as another Confederation ship exploded. "We cannot hold them," his weapons officer said, voice shaking. 2 more defense platforms have fallen." Zarvek closed his eyes briefly. "Keep fighting. Help is coming." "Sir, with respect, no help can reach us in time." Before Zarvek could reply, his communications officer called out, "Massive energy signatures detected. Hundreds of ships entering the system." Zarvek's heart sank. More Yith reinforcements would mean the end of Selnar Prime. But what appeared on their screens wasn't Yith. Huge warships, larger than anything in the Confederation fleet, dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. They were sleek, powerful, and moved with incredible precision. At their center was an enormous vessel that dwarfed even the others. "This is Admiral Kate Wilson of the United Earth Fleet, flagship U.S. Intrepid," came a transmission on all channels. "Confederation forces, adjust your shield frequencies to match the data we're sending. Fall back and regroup. We'll handle the front line." The human fleet moved forward like a single organism. Their ships fired weapons that cut through Yith vessels with ease. Fighter craft swarmed from launch bays, hundreds at a time. "By the stars," whispered Zarvek's navigator. The legends didn't do them justice. On the bridge of the U.S. Intrepid, Admiral Wilson studied the tactical display. Her gray-streaked hair was pulled back tightly, and her uniform bore the marks of someone who'd come directly from another battle. "Target their command ships first," she ordered. "Cruiser groups 2 and 3. Protect the civilian evacuation corridors." Beside her stood Lyra, watching in awe as the human fleet executed complex maneuvers that the Confederation had never even conceived. "Your ships move like they share one mind," Lyra said. Wilson nodded. "Tactical neural linking. Our captains train for years to fight as one unit." A junior officer approached. "Admiral, Engineer Carpenter reports the shield modifications are ready." Wilson turned to Lyra. "Get word to your people. Tell them to retreat to these coordinates. We're creating a safe zone for civilians." On the surface of Selnar Prime, human dropships landed amid the chaos. Soldiers in powered armor charged into burning buildings, rescuing trapped civilians. Among them was Engineer John Carpenter, setting up strange devices at key points around the largest city. "Shield generators online," he reported through his helmet comm. "Expanding field to cover residential sectors." A shimmering dome of energy spread outward, stopping Yith bombardment from reaching the city center. Selnar civilians watched in disbelief as human soldiers fought to protect them. Back in space, the tide was turning. The human fleet's superior tactics had broken the Yith formation. Enemy ships were retreating or being destroyed. Then a massive shadow fell across the battlefield. "New contact," reported the Intrepid sensor officer. "It's enormous." A Yith vessel 3 times the size of the Intrepid moved into the system. Its hull opened to reveal what could only be described as a planet-killer weapon. "They're targeting the Selnar homeworld directly," Lyra gasped. Admiral Wilson's expression hardened. "All ships, form barrier pattern Delta. We're going to block that shot." "Admiral," her second-in-command protested, "barrier pattern means putting our ships directly in the line of fire. Even our hulls can't withstand that weapon." "We didn't come all this way to watch another world die," Wilson replied firmly. "Humans protect their allies. Signal all ships. We stand between that weapon and the planet." As the human fleet moved to shield Selnar Prime with their own vessels, Lyra watched with tears in her eyes. "They're willing to die for us," she whispered. "People they just met." Zarvek, watching from his ship, finally understood why humans had been remembered not just with fear, but with awe. "The legends were true," he said softly. "Not just their power, but their courage." The human fleet formed a living shield between the Yith planet killer and Selnar Prime. Admiral Wilson's voice remained steady as she gave orders. "Redirect all power to forward shields. Prepare for impact." The massive Yith weapon began to glow with terrible energy. Just as it fired, 3 more human ships jumped into the system, positioning themselves at the front of the formation. The blast struck them directly. 2 ships disintegrated instantly. The third, badly damaged, drifted away. But their sacrifice had weakened the beam enough for the rest of the fleet to absorb it without breaking. "Damage report," Wilson demanded. 30% of the fleet reporting critical damage," her officer replied. "But Selnar Prime is safe." Before the Yith could fire again, a new squadron of human attack ships swarmed the planet killer, targeting specific points on its hull. The massive vessel began to break apart from the precise strikes. In the aftermath of the battle, an emergency council formed on the U.S. Intrepid. Leaders from both the Confederation and human forces gathered around a large table. A human man with kind eyes and gray-streaked beard stepped forward. He wore simple clothes rather than a uniform. "I'm Dr. Sam Perkins, Chief Archaeologist for the Earth Historical Society," he introduced himself. "What I'm about to share will change how you view galactic history." He activated a display showing DNA sequences. "We've analyzed genetic samples from all Confederation species and compared them to human DNA," he explained. "The similarities cannot be coincidence. All of us share common ancestors." The Confederation representatives looked shocked. Meyerkel, a respected Confederation scientist, examined the data closely. "This would mean," Meyerkel began. "That we're related," Dr. Perkins finished. "Long ago, perhaps millions of years, we shared the same homeworld." Grellicor's eyes narrowed with suspicion. "If this is true, why have humans kept it secret?" Captain Miller stepped forward. "We only confirmed it recently, and the Yith have worked hard to keep this knowledge buried." Dr. Perkins continued. "The Yith have manipulated galactic civilization for millennia. They kept potential threats divided, erasing shared history, creating artificial boundaries." He showed ancient cave paintings from Earth depicting strange, flowing creatures watching over primitive humans. "They've been guiding our development, keeping us separate and weak," Dr. Perkins said. "When any civilization grows too powerful, the Yith appear as mythical monsters to frighten them back into submission." Lyra looked troubled. "Then the stories of monsters in our ancient texts were Yith," Miller confirmed, "just as they appeared in human myths as various demons and shapeshifters." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. Then Miracle spoke up. "Dr. Perkins, if we studied the ancient Earth records together, perhaps we could find a way to defeat the Yith permanently." "That's why I'm here," Dr. Perkins agreed. "I believe there's an answer in our shared past." Admiral Wilson entered the room, her uniform showing signs of the recent battle. "While our scientists work, we have another problem," she said gravely. "Confederation leaders are questioning our true numbers and strength." Grellicor nodded. "The display of power we witnessed was concerning. How many ships does Earth actually have?" A tense silence fell over the room. Eventually, Wilson spoke. "We have been fighting the Yith in secret for centuries. Our fleet numbers in the thousands." The Confederation representatives looked alarmed. "You hid this from us deliberately," Grellicor accused. "We didn't know if we could trust you," Wilson replied calmly. "The Yith have infiltrated many governments before." Before the argument could escalate, Miracle called out excitedly from a computer terminal. "Dr. Perkins, look at this pattern in the ancient texts." The human archaeologist hurried over. His eyes widened as he studied the screen. "It matches the frequency disruption we observed during the Epsilon campaign," he said, turning to Admiral Wilson. "We may have found their weakness." Wilson's expression hardened with determination. "Then it's time to take the fight to them. We need to strike at their homeworld." "You know where it is?" Lyra asked in surprise. "We do now," Dr. Perkins said grimly. "And it's time they learned that humanity is no longer afraid of the dark." The largest fleet in galactic history gathered at the edge of known space. Human warships formed the core, their massive hulls gleaming in the light of a dying star. Around them, vessels from all 7 Confederation species took formation. Their designs varied, but their purpose united. On the bridge of the U.S. Intrepid, Admiral Wilson surveyed the tactical display. 2,317 ships, she said quietly. "And we'll need everyone." Beside her stood Lyra and Grellicor, representing the Confederation forces. Despite lingering tensions, the shared enemy had forged an uneasy alliance. "The Yith homeworld is heavily defended," Wilson continued, showing the intelligence gathered by scout ships. "Their orbital defenses include 3,000 combat platforms and an energy shield covering the entire planet. Captain Miller pointed to specific locations on the display. Our primary targets are these control centers. If we can disable them, the shield will fail. And then? Grelkor asked. Then we deploy the weapon Dr. Perkins and Miracle developed, Wilson answered. It needs to be delivered directly to their central hive. A woman in a special operations uniform stepped forward. Her dark hair was cut short, and scars crossed her face from previous battles. My team will handle that part, she said confidently. I'm Captain Lisa Rivera, Special Forces. My squad has trained for ground insertion in high-security environments. Lyra nodded in respect. I'll provide a team of Confederation commandos to assist. They know Yith behavior patterns better than anyone. The meeting concluded, and the massive fleet jumped to hyperspace, heading toward a region so feared that no maps showed it. The journey took 3 days, during which humans and Confederation crews trained together, sharing tactics and technology. When they arrived, the Yith were waiting. They knew we were coming, Miller said grimly as the enemy fleet came into view. The Yith ships looked like twisted dark shadows against the stars, their forms constantly shifting as if they couldn't decide what shape to take. Of course they did, Wilson replied. But they don't know our plan. She opened a channel to all ships. All vessels, execute Battle Plan Omega. For Earth and the Confederation. The Human Confederation fleet split into 3 massive groups, attacking from different vectors. The Yith responded by concentrating their forces against the center group, not realizing it was a diversion. The space around the Yith homeworld erupted in explosions as thousands of ships engaged in combat. Fighter craft swarmed like angry insects between the larger vessels. Laser fire and missiles crossed the void in deadly patterns. Below the massive space battle, a small stealth ship carrying Captain Rivera's team and Lyra's commandos slipped through the chaos toward the surface. Shield gap detected, the pilot reported. We have a 10-second window to pass through their defenses. Rivera nodded. Take us in. The ship dove through the opening, taking heavy fire but making it to the planet's surface. As they landed in a rocky canyon, Rivera turned to her team. We have the package, she said, indicating a device Engineer Carpenter had built. We need to reach the central hive and deploy it. The fleet above can't hold forever. Lyra checked her weapon. The hive will be guarded by the strongest Yith. We've faced worse, Rivera replied with a grim smile. They moved out, fighting through Yith patrols that sensed their presence. The aliens here showed their true form, flowing, shapeless masses that could become solid in an instant, with weapons growing from their bodies. Back in space, the battle reached its peak. The U.S. Intrepid took heavy damage as it led the assault on the main shield generator. Hull breach on decks 5 through 9, reported Wilson's officer. Shields failing. Wilson gripped her command chair. Divert emergency power. We need to give Rivera's team more time. Admiral, her communications officer called out. We're receiving a signal from the surface. They've reached the central chamber. On the planet below, Rivera's team stood before a massive structure pulsing with strange energy. Half her team had fallen getting near. She turned to Carpenter, who was setting up the device. How long? She asked. The engineer looked up, his face grim. 2 minutes to calibrate, but someone needs to stay to activate it manually. Rivera and Lyra exchanged glances, both understanding what that meant. Engineer Carpenter looked at the device, then at Rivera and Lyra. I'll stay, he said firmly. This is my design. I know how to make sure it works. John, no, Rivera protested. We can find another way. Carpenter shook his head. There isn't time. The fleet is taking heavy losses. Above them, the battle had turned desperate. Half the Human Confederation fleet was damaged or destroyed. The U.S. Intrepid's bridge sparked with electrical fires as Admiral Wilson continued to direct the fight. We've lost shield generator 2, her officer reported. 30% of our fleet is gone. Back in the hive, Carpenter finished final adjustments to the device. Its core glowed with strange energy that made the air shimmer around it. "The device will disrupt their hive mind," he explained. "Without it, they're just individuals, dangerous, but not coordinated." Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder. "Your sacrifice will be remembered by all Confederation worlds." Carpenter smiled sadly. "Just make sure it counts. Now go. You have 2 minutes before this place becomes very unfriendly." Rivera hesitated, then nodded sharply. "It's been an honor, John." As they ran back toward their ship, Carpenter turned to the device and began the final sequence. "For Earth," he whispered. "For all of us." A blinding flash erupted from the central hive, spreading outward in waves of energy. In space, the Yith ships suddenly stopped moving in formation. They began drifting or firing randomly. "It worked," Wilson exclaimed, watching the enemy fleet fall into chaos. All ships pressed the advantage. The combined fleet surged forward, overwhelming the now disorganized Yith forces. Their ships, once terrifying, were now easy targets. 3 months later, representatives from all 7 Confederation species and humanity gathered in the Great Hall of the Confederation capital. The room buzzed with excitement as Admiral Wilson and Ambassador Garcia entered alongside Grelkor and Lyra. Grelkor stepped up to a podium and raised his hands for silence. "Today marks a historic moment," he announced. "For thousands of years, the Galactic Confederation has stood as an alliance of 7 species. Today, we welcome our 8th member, humanity." Applause filled the hall as Diana Garcia stepped forward to receive the formal scroll of membership. "Humanity accepts this honor with gratitude and hope," she said. "What began in conflict has ended in brotherhood. Together, we are stronger than we ever could be apart." Across the galaxy, joint human Confederation teams worked to hunt down remaining Yith who had escaped the homeworld. Captain Miller and Commander Lyra led one such team aboard a new ship, crewed by both humans and Confederation species. "Scanner shows a Yith signal in the next system," Lyra reported on the bridge. Miller nodded. "Let's go get them." Their ship, named Unity, jumped to hyperspace. Back at the ceremony, a memorial wall was unveiled, bearing the names of all who died in what was now called the Liberation War. Engineer John Carpenter's name held a place of honor. Scholar Trell, whose research had been mocked for decades, watched with satisfaction as children from both human and Confederation families gathered around displays showing their shared history. "The myths were real all along," a young Selnar said in wonder, looking at images of ancient Earth. "And the monsters were real too," added a human child. "But we beat them together." Admiral Wilson stood with Grelkor, watching the celebration. "What happens now?" Grelkor asked. Wilson smiled. "Now we rebuild. Learn from each other. Explore together. Some still fear your military power," Grelkor admitted. "And some humans still distrust aliens," Wilson replied. "But we'll work through it. That's what families do." Outside the Grand Hall, the first Joint Human Confederation Academy had opened its doors. Young officers from all 8 species trained together, learning each other's languages, customs, and fighting styles. And in distant space, the U.S. Defender and a Confederation vessel patrolled side by side, watching for any sign of the enemy's return. Their crews no longer sought each other as myths or strangers, but as something they had nearly forgotten how to be. Allies, friends, family. The story of humans and the Confederation was just beginning.